Hello, welcome back to my channel. Sorry that I wasn't a video for such a long time, but I'm hoping in the future I'm gonna show more of the Checkmk videos. I'm gonna start with another topic this time. It's about how do you get your hosts inside to Checkmk. I've written a tool for that which is in use for multiple companies now. It's like a rule-based system for synchronization between APIs, CMDBs and other stuff into Checkmk and vice versa. It's called the CMDB Syncer. It's completely free and you can find it in GitHub, link below. What I'm gonna show you today are some of the features of this tool. Let's look into it. Everything starts here on the GitHub page. As mentioned, the link you can find below in the description. There is a documentation in the wiki part where you can see how to set it up. It's basically how to run a manual installation, how to use it with Docker, and how do you set up the production environment using the UWSGE. To make it more easy, I'm gonna use the manual installation, which means I need to check out the project locally and run the development server. To check out the project locally is like the basic step for every installation. The differences here is if I want to run it locally, I need to have the MongoDB installed on my server. If I run it with the Docker Compose file, everything is already prepared and there will be a Docker container with this MongoDB. But it is really easy to install anyway on Ubuntu or Red Hat. It's just apt install MongoDB or the same with Yum. So let's start. I go back to the code part. I go to code and I copy the URL. I change to the command line. I enter git clone and then I'm just gonna paste the URL. First step is done. Then I need to change into the directory. What we need to do now is to create the Python environment. We're going to use Python 3.6 at least. So Python 3.3.6 module virtual environment and name of the environment it's env. We're going to load this environment. And now I need to install the packages inside this environment. Make sure to load the environment always before, otherwise you're going to install the packages into your system. This takes a little moment. And if everything is working, you should be able to enter the Flask command. The first you're going to see here is an error message, because it's the message that the configuration can't be found. So easily go to application and copy the config py example to config py. You can check the content. It's nothing much than a secret key. You need to change that, or you should at least change it. And a few settings for the login. Now, when I go back, I'm able to run the Flask command and I see the possible commandos. There's basically some debug rules, like debug print, debug rules. I can create a user. That's what I need to do to log into the web interface. And then we have the commandos. Out of the box, we can export and import to Checkmk, export only to the version 2. But it's pretty easy to build your own import plugin, which means a plugin you can use to import data inside the system. For starters, I'm gonna create my first account, enter Flask, create user, and use a test email address. This is gonna create a user with a password. Now I'm gonna start a test server. Just going to use a second window here. I change to git CMDB Syncer. Don't forget to load the environment. And now I can run the Flask server. The params I is gonna use here is, wait for it, Flask environment development. It's just for me. You don't gonna need that, but you should start here, Flask run, specify the IP address of the interface, or in my case, I use like every interface, and specify the port number. From now, I can go back to my browser and change to this port. Also, the not found here is completely correct because the system is behind /admin. Here you're going to see email, password, and OTP. Per default, my user doesn't have this two-factor authentication. You can set up it later. For now, I just gonna copy the password from here. I'm gonna paste it and enter my address. And there we go. In the system, I have already some test hosts. So if I'm gonna change to hosts, I see some local hosts and VOG1 and VOG2. Everything I see here is done automatically by the importer. The concept is to have labels. You can use basically every attribute you have later on as a label here. And based on these labels, you can then apply the rules for the export. That you can import and export data, the first thing you're going to need is an account. In the part config, you have the part accounts. And there you can set up the credentials for the systems. In my example, I have a Checkmk version 1, a Checkmk version 2. And every account has like an internal name. This internal name is then later used on the command line. In this way, you don't have any credentials on the command line. You just specify the account name. And basically, if you want to import, or let's say you wanted to export to multiple Checkmk instances, you can always use the same command, but just change the account name, because with the account name comes the address and the secrets. Also, if you're going to build your own integration, it's basically really easy to integrate it here, since you have like a part custom fields. So there you can add basically every field your integration or your API gonna need, and your plugin can get it then afterwards from here. Then the second part are the rules. We have action rules, label rules, and custom host rules. Let's start with the label rules. With the label rules, you control which of the database labels you want to see in Checkmk. Also, it's important if you do later actions based on labels, you need to whitelist these labels also here. A label rule is basically simple. I'm gonna create a new one. You're gonna need a description for this rule. Then you can add a condition. For example, you want a label name or the label value to be like def, which means every label equal to def is added to Checkmk. You can also go, if the label value is equal to def, then the label is added. Of course, you can go with contains, ends, and starts with. And you can even negate, which means in this case, if we're going to negate this, for every label value not equal to def, we add it to Checkmk. The next step then is add the outcome. You can say you want to add this label. Instead, you can of course dismiss it. And using the command key, you can use more than one option here. Besides of adding the label, I want to strip it, which means I replace the white spaces at the start at the end. I make it lowercase, and here in the bottom you have also the options to automatically replace all the white spaces with an underscore. Of course, you need to enable the rule, and then you have a sort field. The sort field is the same like in every rule. You can add a number here to control the order of the rules you're going to use. For example, if you want to run a rule first, you put in a lower number. If the rule can run later, you just add a higher number. Of course, you can always reuse numbers or let the field just empty here. Makes not much sense in this rule. It's more useful, for example, in the action rules. In the action rules, you control what will happen in Checkmk. The conditions here are either a match of a host name, that's the green part. You can say if the host name ends with de.com, then you want add an outcome. Or you can go like match for tag. Then the green part here is ignored. Then you're going to use the blue part here. And then you can go equal contains ends with starts with. You can negate again. Then you enter the tag name, like if the tag name def is equal to yes. Or again, you can negate if it's not equal to yes. Then you can say, I want to ignore this host. The important thing is here, you can only use the labels you have whitelisted before in the label rule. So even if you import like hundreds of labels for every host, before whitelisting them, the rule engine is not going to use them. So what more you can do? You can add, of course, more than one condition. You can group them. You can say all conditions must match. Any of condition can match. So if at least one is matching, then the outcome is triggered. Or you can even match without any condition. If you want to create like a default rule, then you don't need to add anything like here. Then to the possible outcomes, here you find the most power of the system. You can just use the move host to given folder, then for example enter like dev systems, and the system will automatically create this folder for you and move every host inside this folder. Then you can do some magic. If you're going to use the value of the given tag as folder name, you can enter tag name like def. Then the value for the label is used as the folder name. You can do the same with the tag. So you give a value, then the system is searching for the tag with the value and is using the tag name as the folder name. Then this is a really special one. Since more than one rule can match, you can use add this folder as a base folder. So basically you can define that in one rule that you want to have like every host with the, let's stay with the dev label inside the develop folder. And this is then used as a base folder. Then if for the host another rule will match and has the move host to given folder, the folder specified here then is basically added as subfolder to the base folder. The reason for that is to create like default rules to make the first sorting, and then with more specific tags you move them inside the subfolder. So then you can ignore this host. Very easy. And then you can use a really special feature here. You can assign it randomly to a pool folder. Inside the config part, you can configure folder pools. I can show it here. You basically set up the name for the pool. You set up the number of seeds in this pool. And you can see the system will count the hosts which are inside this pool already. So the first time a host matches to this rule here, a free pool is searched. Then the host is logged inside this pool here and the seed is taken. So from then on, this host will automatically always end up in the same folder. This is a feature built for a really big environment where you have like thousands of hosts which you want to move in between multiple sites. In this example, the pool is the same like a site folder, and so the system automatically moves the hosts in between the different sites. So that are all of the features here now, but I'm pretty sure in the future there are gonna be some more. Then some more options in the rule, like last match. If you set this, then for the host, if this rule matches, no other rule will match. Normally, every rule is matched against the host as long as she is enabled. And the order, again, is done here by the sort field. So the rules with a lower number will always match first. And so here you can just add the number to put them at the front or the end. I would recommend to use like 100 for the default rules, and you can do your special rules with 500 and extra special rules with 900. And still you don't need to count up. You can, if the order doesn't matter that much for a group, you can, for example, always use the 100 also for multiple rules. So then the final part here, it's the custom host rules. They're kind of special if your environment or your, let's say your CMDB is really messed up and you need the option to add more information which you cannot find in your CMDB. You can also do it here. This kind of rules match basically on host names. And they can be used either in the moment of an import or an export. For import, which means if you write your own plugin, you can read all rules from the system and tell the system like you just want to see the import rules. If you want to control something happens in direction to Checkmk, then you use export to explain. The params here are, for example, ignore matching host. And normally you want to do that already at the import. So you can program your import in a way that the ignore matching hosts rules are read from here. Of course, if you save it as an export rule, it also will work because the Checkmk2 exporter is also checking for this param here. And the second option, this is the more powerful one, you can add custom labels, like for information which you don't have in your CMDB. For example, if there is no field for production or not production servers, and you know like the host name domain, if it's like dev dot something, it's a dev system, you can do a match to nswit. You say dev.com and say you want to have the same example again, to take development set to yes. And from then on, if you save it, every system which hostname is ending with dev.com will have additional tag with the name development and the value yes. And of course, the tags you add here are again used in the action rules, so you can use these tags as condition in your action rules. Okay, that's all what I wanted to show for now. Remember, you find the documentation in the wiki part of the GitHub. I hope it was helpful. Maybe you can use the tool. If not, yeah, maybe in the future. And as promised, I'm gonna make some videos more. I even already have a list of topics, so stay tuned. See you next time.